Good morning, church. I hope your Independence weekend came to a good close as we met together yesterday and worshiped, and we head into a new week. And with a new week, we have a new week of reading. And this week, we are shifting from the Old Testament to the New Testament, and that's where we're going to spend the most of the rest of our time throughout the year of the Word. And today, we are starting in John chapter 1. We're going to read verses 1 through 14. So John 1 through 14. And in here, we find out a lot about Jesus. It actually starts out saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And I don't want you to be confused when you read this today, but when it says the Word, it's specifically referring to Jesus. This is just another way that John was referring to Jesus Christ himself. So in here, when it says the Word, he's talking about Jesus. And we find a few different things in here. We find a testimony about John the Baptist, who was one who came and who bore witness that Christ was to come. But most of these 14 verses focus on different attributes or different characteristics of Jesus himself. And so I just want to highlight a few of those for us as we begin our reading this week. And this morning, I want to just pull out a few of these things that it tells us about Jesus. And the first is that Jesus is eternal. Jesus has always existed. There's never been a time when he was not. There will never be a time when he will not be. And we see this. It says, in the beginning, in verse 1, in the beginning was the Word. That Jesus was there when it all started. Also, I want us to see that Jesus is equal to God. We see that in the second half. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And this means he was side by side. He was equal in power, equal in his deity. He was equal with God the Father. So Jesus is eternal. Jesus is equal. Not only is Jesus equal to God, Jesus actually is God. It says in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was equal to God, and the Word was God. So here we have a straight, clear declaration that Jesus is God. Jesus is God. He literally means that Jesus was God himself. So Jesus is eternal. Jesus is equal to God. Jesus is God. And then we see that Jesus is the creator of all things. In verse 3, it says, all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Jesus is the creator of everything. That everything that exists, everything that is in creation is so because Jesus made it. Jesus created it. And then we see in verse 4 that Jesus is the origin, or Jesus is the beginning of life. It says that in him was life, and the life was the light of the world. That Jesus literally is life, that we can't have life apart from him. The only life that we can truly have, true life, is found in Jesus. And then the final thing we see about Jesus here is that Jesus overcomes sin. Jesus overcomes the darkness. Jesus is unstoppable. In verse 5, it says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The darkness has not overcome it. We live in a dark world, but we can have such faith and such hope in Jesus because Jesus cannot be defeated or overcome by the light. And so there's a lot more through here as we look at the second half of this. This was just through the first 5 or 6 verses, but I just wanted to point out some different characteristics of Jesus as we begin our reading in the New Testament this morning. So I hope you're able to read today John chapter 1, verses 1 through 14, as we see just a little bit of who Jesus is. He's eternal. He's equal with God. He is God. Jesus is the origin of life. Jesus is the creator of all things, and Jesus overcomes the darkness. So I hope you have a great Monday. Hope your week gets off to a great start, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning.